Hello and welcome back to my Read Aloud channel and to this extreme commentary on a verse that popped out to me in 1 Samuel chapter 2. And so I'm going to attempt to read 4 paragraphs of 2 different articles, 4 paragraphs each. I'm going to return to the article that I started in my last video after finishing the one that I last read from. Okay, and I will reference those. They're basically from the Got Questions site, and the first one is called "Why Did God Harden Pharaoh's Heart?" So let's see if I can do it with making it all intelligible. Okay, first. Pharaoh was not an innocent or godly man. He was a brutal dictator overseeing the terrible abuse and oppression of the Israelites, who likely numbered over 1.5 million people at that time. The Egyptian pharaohs had enslaved the Israelites for 400 years. A previous pharaoh, possibly even the pharaoh in question, ordered that male Israelite babies be killed at birth in Exodus 1:16. The pharaoh God hardened was an evil man, and the nation he ruled agreed with or at least did not oppose his evil actions. Second, on least a couple occasions, um, Pharaoh hardened his own heart against letting the Israelites go. But when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart. Exodus 8:15. But this time also Pharaoh hardened his heart. Exodus 8:32. It seems that God and Pharaoh were both active in one way or another in the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. As the plagues continued, God gave Pharaoh increasingly severe warnings of the final judgment to come. Pharaoh chose to bring further judgment on himself and his nation by hardening his own heart against God's commands. It could be that as a result of Pharaoh's hardness, God hardened Pharaoh's heart even further, allowing for the last few plagues and bringing God's full glory into view. And that's in Exodus 9, 12, and 10, 20, and 27. Pharaoh and Egypt had brought these judgments on themselves with 400 years of slavery and mass murder. Since the wages of sin is death, Romans 6:23, and Pharaoh and Egypt had horribly sinned against God, it would have been just if God had completely annihilated Egypt. Therefore, God's hardening Pharaoh's heart was not unjust, and his bringing additional plagues against Egypt was not unjust. The plagues, as terrible as they were, actually demonstrated God's mercy in not completely destroying Egypt, which would have been a perfectly just penalty. Last paragraph. Romans 9:17 to 18 declares, "For the scripture says to Pharaoh, I raised you up for this very purpose, that I might display my power in you, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. Therefore, God has mercy on whom he wants to have mercy, and he hardens whom he wants to harden." From a human perspective, it seems wrong for God to harden a person and then punish the person he has hardened. Basically speaking, however, we have all sinned against God, Romans 3:23, and the just penalty for that sin is death, Romans 6:23. Therefore, God's hardening and punishing a person is not unjust. It is actually merciful in comparison to what the person deserves. Okay? So that is definitely something I think that was worth reading. The next article from Got Questions is titled, "Does God Killing People Make Him a Murderer?" We read part of that in my last video. Um, and then I wanted to read the last 4 paragraphs. All right. In order, let's see what's up. Ah! 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. When God chose to destroy all mankind in the flood, he was totally justified in doing so. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Genesis 6:5. During the conquest of Canaan, God ordered the complete destruction of entire cities and nations. But of the city, this is quote, "But of the cities of these people which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, you shall let nothing that breathes remain alive, but you shall utterly destroy them." Okay, I'm on the video. "The Hittite and the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite, just as the Lord your God has commanded you." Deuteronomy 20:16 to 17. Why did God give such a command? Israel was God's instrument of